Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our brand new MOOC, Envisioning the Graduates of the Future, and welcome to this live launch event. Thanks so much to those of you who are watching with us simultaneously here. We've got a great crew in the chat window. People from Somerville and from Massachusetts, from California, from New Hampshire, from Arizona, from Orange County. Great to have people from all over the US and join us for this really important conversation about envisioning the graduate of the future. So my name is Justin Reich. I'm an assistant professor of comparative media studies at MIT, and I'm a director of the lab called the Teaching Systems Lab. We investigate the complex technology-rich classrooms of the future and the systems that we need to help educators thrive in those settings. And one of the things that we found working with schools over the years is that the schools that have the clearest sense of where they're trying to end up, of what it is that their graduates look like, that ends up being a really powerful tool in all the other innovation and reform and design work that they're doing. So we're so excited to have this conversation with you over the next few weeks about graduate profiles and envisioning the graduates of the future. You're going to have a great chance to meet a whole bunch of folks from the Teaching Systems Lab team. In the chat with those of you live here right now is my colleague Liz Huttner-Loan, who's the captain of all of our MOOC efforts, our massive open online course efforts here at the Teaching Systems Lab. And you'll get to know her at the forums, and she's a wealth of wisdom about online learning and learning in schools. You'll also get a chance to meet my colleague Alyssa Napier, who in addition to being a brilliant instructional designer is also an incredible artist. And you'll see Alyssa's art all throughout the course in the comic that maybe that you've seen already, as well as in some of the different illustrations throughout the class. A third member of our team is our community teaching assistant, who's Ben Owens. Ben is someone who has taken a couple of our online courses in the past, and he's a teacher at Tri-County Early College, a high school in North Carolina, in the hills of Appalachia. And he's an incredible teacher and works in an incredible school, which is doing some really amazing collaborative work together. And so I think you're going to have a really great chance to learn from Ben and all of his experience and wisdom in this course as well. Ben and Alyssa aren't here with us live right now, but you'll definitely get a chance to meet them in the forums as we're going along. There are two folks that are joining us that I'm going to introduce in just a minute from XQ, Michelle Cahill and Monica Martinez, and super great they're here. This MITx course was sponsored by XQ, and we're very, very grateful for their support. So before I let Michelle and Monica introduce themselves, let me just give you a little bit of information about the structure of the course. In the beginning of the course, you'll come into a welcome section, and you'll get a chance to learn a little bit about what a graduate profile is. You're going to see this terrific comic that Alyssa Napier designed and put together. And one of the reasons why we wanted to summarize the course, some of the main ideas of the course in a comic, is that we're hoping that you'll recruit other people in your schools and the community to come and join you in taking this class. We found that our online learning experiences are most powerful when you have a chance to take them with other people. So I hope you'll download the PDF and put it in an email to some colleagues who you think would really enjoy doing this with you, and hopefully that'll entice you to entice them to join the course with you. So in part one of the course, you'll consider the purposes of high school, and you'll hear from schools that are doing important thinking and work on the characteristics that high school graduates need to succeed. You're going to hear from some of the educators that we've talked with throughout the design of the course. You're going to hear from three amazing MIT professors who have a lot of experience seeing great high school students turn into great college students, and hear a little bit from them about their perspective of what high schools ought to be doing to prepare young people for the future. David Artur, who's one of those professors, is a labor economist who's one of the real experts in the future of work. And it's great to hear him talking about some of that. And then in part two, you'll focus on developing a draft of a graduate profile. And each of you will take that draft and you'll do different things of it. Some of you even here on this chat are school board members, and you might have a lot of leverage to really sort of galvanize your whole community into getting immediately into this work. Some of you who I'm sure here are classroom teachers or teaching assistants or librarians. And one of our strongest beliefs in the Teaching Systems Lab is that school leadership really comes from all different parts of school systems, and some of the most important changes that get made in schools start from the most unlikely of places. They can start anywhere in schools. Anytime there's a group of people in a school that's having a rich conversation about what graduates of the future need to succeed, that conversation has ripple effects that go all throughout the course. When you're done watching this live event, or if you're a great multitasker, it would be great to have you introduce yourself in the forums. We'd love to get to know the people who are in the class, reading the introductions, finding out more about them. One of the things you'll find when you read through those introductions is that people are from all different kinds of places. And so you might identify that there's a cluster of folks from Illinois that are taking the course together, or there's a cluster of school board members, or there's a cluster of library media specialists. And so if you introduce yourself and give us all some details about who you are and what you're up to, and maybe a little bit too, would be interesting to know more about just where your school is in thinking about graduate profiles and what characteristics high school graduates need to succeed. Some of you might be taking this course because it's a conversation that you want to start in your school. Some of you might have been doing this work for a long time and are just trying to deepen your practice and use the course as a way of getting more people involved. So wherever you're at, we're thrilled to have you. And as Liz points out in the chat, a bunch of you have introduced yourselves already, and it's just really fun to get started to get to know the different people in the course. Throughout the rest of this live event, anybody who's on the chat, if you have any questions for us, if you want to know anything more about the course, if you want to know more about the background, if you have any questions for our team, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we have some as they come up, particularly for those of you who've delved into the course material a little bit. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. But why don't I start by turning to Michelle Cahill from XQ and give her a chance to introduce herself and talk a little bit about XQ's support of this.
Thank you, Justin, and hello, everyone. And I'm really delighted to be here with our MIT friends to at the launch of this course on envisioning the future graduates and graduate profile. XQ is dedicated to collaborating, joining with people from all over the country and beyond toward transforming high schools, that they become the kinds of places that young people both find their purpose, find their pathway, and become educated in a way that will prepare them to thrive in their futures in this rapidly changing world. We're delighted to be able to support this course, and I want to let everyone know that we are also able to provide and offer a coupon code now with MITx so that anyone taking this course can earn a certificate by completing the requirements of the course for a certificate and using the coupon code which is on the site. So rather than paying the $49, we really encourage people to dig in, work together at your school or in your community, and really take this as an opportunity for a deep dive into a graduate profile for the young people in your community. XQ started out as a competition for super schools, the xqsuperschool.org competition. We are now engaged with more than 10,000 people around the country who have made themselves visible, working on transforming their high schools. And we look forward to participating in the forums with all of you as this course develops.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And I think it's just a great opportunity for anybody who can dig into the course to complete the requirements to be able to get a free certificate with that coupon code. And as Liz said, that if you go to the top of the navigation, we have a bar that says "Want a free certificate," and you'll be able to find out more about the requirements and how you can do that. So thank you. Michelle, we have some conversations about this in the course, but I'd love to maybe just to dip into this a little bit. This was a big part of the XQ design competition. Can you tell more about sort of why you think considering the purpose of high school is so important for schools that are engaged in this work?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. I think a graduate profile is a really powerful image and powerful tool for beginning the conversation about transforming high schools for young people and with young people. I've been at this for a long time as an educator, as a parent, as a community advocate for youth. And one of the things is that often when we've tried to fix high school, we've started with what's wrong with systems, or how do we offer one more enrichment or a different kind of course. This really starts with the focus on the young person, on what high school will mean to them in their lives. And high school, as you've just said, needs to have a purpose, and it also needs to be a kind of pathway that's a launching pad for future adult life, what a young person is going to experience and the challenges. And in addition, that pathway has to be a pathway of opportunity for every young person. So the graduate profile begins with both who are your students, what are their needs, what are their aspirations, and also what does the future require? What does college require? What do careers require? What does functioning as an engaged participant in our society require? XQ has identified a set of learning goals that could just engage with at some point, look at as a kind of way of thinking about a graduate profile. And I think in conversation with so many people in the country over the last year and a half, we've talked about like masters of fundamental literacies, being a compelling writer, a critical reader and thinker, the academic core, but the academic core and what we call holders of foundational knowledge, because they're curious people about sciences, about history, about cultural dimensions in our country. But then also those dimensions of generous collaborators working together to solve problems, original thinkers, sense makers. How do young people deal with conflicting knowledge? And finally, learners for life. Everyone is going to have the capacity, both the knowledge, skills, but also the attribute of continuous learning so that they can flourish in an incredibly rapidly changing society. So a graduate profile can both encompass large-scale things like that and also get down to the kinds of learning experiences that you want our students to have and the kinds of content knowledge and skills to develop. Finally, one way I've found a graduate profile to be helpful is so much is asked of schools right now. So many different demands on teachers. And as we're talking about expanding the pathways and opportunities that young people have, how do we draw on the assets of communities, other adults that can help? One of the ways is to come to an agreement in a community about the kinds of the purpose of high school and how young people will be equipped when they leave it. So that's, to me, is the power of a graduate profile.
No, that final point in particular, the idea that this can really be a community event, I think is a powerful notion, and one that you'll see. You know, we have 3 main case studies that are built in throughout the course, and in each of them, they really talk about how important it is to be connecting with a wide variety of people within schools and beyond schools, because the more that a graduate profile is something that's really shared, the more that an entire community of people can work towards it. So let me also introduce Monica Martinez. Monica, it would be great to hear a little bit about WLA's participation in the course and some of the other things that you're excited about.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And as Michelle indicated, we're so excited about this partnership with you and the reach that we can have. My role at XQ is to really work with the 18 schools in the XQ network and to really support them, but also lift up their stories. So that's one reason why we're so excited about the MOOC, is that we'll have Washington Leadership Academy featured in this in one of the videos as part of the case studies, but that we also have other schools to draw from. And so my hope today is that I'll be able to share with you how some of the other 18 schools in our networks have gone about designing and creating and organizing their learning outcomes to be a portfolio. But we're also excited that our XQ schools are joining in the MOOC with the other 1,800 folks for those who haven't developed a graduate profile, they're going to do that. And even folks here at XQ, particularly the school support staff, we're all going to be working together on the classroom with you and using the XQ learner goals for us to create our own graduate profile and for us to think deeply with you and with our schools about what all students should know and be able to do and what that really looks like in a graduate profile.
That's great. You know, one of the questions that we got on Twitter is that, you know, and we try to engage with folks as much as we can on social media using the Future Grad MOOC, Future Grads, it's plural, Future Grads MOOC hashtag, and then you can also tweet at me at BJFR. But a colleague was asking, hey, I work for, I think it was the Alliance for Excellence in Education. Can I participate in the course? And absolutely you can. That would be, you know, one thing that's important is that, you know, in order to provide some boundaries and structure around the course, we've really thought hard about what a high school graduate looks like, but that shouldn't preclude anyone from participating. It's terrific that folks from XQ or other organizations want to join. It sounds like there are some nonprofits that are here today. There may be folks from elementary schools and middle schools. All of these ideas, I think, can be used in different contexts to give us some structure and to work together. We're going to talk about high schools, but I think you'll see how these things can be extended in other kind of ways. Monica, can you tell me about another high school in the cohort that's doing important reflection and exploration around the purpose of high school? And can you say more about how that reflection and exploration is affecting the curriculum?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few to choose from, so it was hard, and don't mean to dismiss any of our schools, but I actually thought that I would lead with Sci-High. And so Sci-High is going to be a school that opens this fall in Seminole County. And the reason why I chose their learner outcomes was because of, similar to what Michelle talked about, is the way they went about creating the graduate profile for the district as a way to provide vision for all of the schools, not just the high school. But essentially the district engaged key stakeholders, you know, in the community to say, what do you need our students to be able to know and do globally, but also regionally, and with regard to economic development. And so as a district, they created what's called the E-Pathway Skills for Future Graduates. And essentially they have 4 domains. So some schools just list specific skills or capacities that they want in a graduate profile, but Sci-High and Seminole County created 4 domains: learning, participating, interacting, and growing. And within these 4 domains, they have 12 future-ready skills. So under learning, innovation, imagination, problem solving, information, digital literacy, I'm sure this sounds very familiar to other folks. Under participating, engaged citizenship, international outlook, personal and social responsibility. Under interacting, communication, collaboration, interpersonal skills. And under growing, self-awareness and adaptability. And much to your point that you were just saying, Justin, so many people have learner outcomes under a different name. When I was a senior fellow with the Hewlett Foundation, it was called Deeper Learning. And we would always say, we really don't care the label that you put or the umbrella term that you put on it. Just be really clear what you want your students to know and do, because that's what's going to set the vision for how you design your instructional program and all the experiences students will do. So with Sci-High, they're actually going to turn these into competencies, and they're going to be a competency-based school. So students can progress at their own speed as long as they show mastery of competency. They've already developed a profile for what a 12th grader looks like and what an 8th grader looks like, so they can start saying, and this is what a 9th grader can do, and this is what a 10th grader can do, and this is what 11th grader could do. So they can actually create that process for what it looks like when a high school student graduates. Similarly, in Houston, Texas, for high school also used the district's graduate profile, which is a global competency framework. And the principal there said that they had the same process. They worked with the community to identify them, but they wanted to be really clear on what students should know and be able to do when they left the system. And so there's our leader, adaptable and productive, college-ready learner, critical thinker, skilled communicator, and they defined all of these. And I think that's what becomes really important, is defining them. So it's not just that you have a vision for what students know, what to know and do when they graduate, but that you're able to have a shared vision among your school so that this provides that coherency and the synergy for what teachers and parents and students do every day when they come to school. I can give you far more examples because all our schools are very different. Da Vinci Rise High School, they really created a learning profile that was more customized for the students that they serve, because they have a lot of students who are disconnected from school because they've been homeless or they've been in foster care, so they've gone across systems. So Rise High has taken a lot of initiative and effort to not just use Da Vinci's learner profile with regard to academic competencies, but they've also developed social emotional learning competencies. So I love that you can customize these for each kind of school that's out there for your community, your region. You can use the district framework, you can use a national framework. The bottom line is make sure you know what you want your students to know and do, and organize around that.
Meeting. Good. Thanks, Monica. That's great to hear some of those stories. And obviously, for those of you who are enrolled in the course, you probably have your own stories as well of schools that you think are doing a fabulous job with this. Martin over in the chat was saying that he's been looking at some international examples in Singapore and other places where people have some great learner profiles and competencies and graduate profiles and other kinds of characteristics. Martin makes the great point that sometimes the vision is just a dream and sort of remains in that state. One of the things that we talk a lot about with our schools is what we call the someday Monday dilemma, which is that, one of the things that we want all of our schools to do, and a big part of this course is going to be sort of dreaming grandly about what's possible in the future. And then you need to pair that with the kinds of things that you can do concrete, actionable on any given Monday to take one step towards those more ambitious goals. And I'm sure those conversations will shape what we're doing as we go ahead.
Justin, could I just add real quickly that I think within all of this, the idea is to understand the students, to understand the future, and to make sure we're giving all students the greatest opportunity, right? So that as we use different language for college and career, whatever, that we're making sure we're not falling into the old dual kinds of diplomas and everything, but really preparing everyone for the demands of the 21st century.
And that makes me think of the video. I watched it recently, so it's in my head, of some of the MIT professors who are talking about what they think of the purpose of high school, and sort of the idea that some of the skills that we used to think only a very small proportion of people in society need to have are really skills that now everybody in society.
Absolutely.
That it raises the challenge. In some cases, it's not just a matter of sometimes not necessarily finding new skills. It's about saying, how do we make the best of what we've offered to folks more accessible to our entire school population?
And Justin, if I could add to that, that's why the community conversations are so important, because we have to really think about school of yesterday and school of the future, school of today, right? So when you guys look at the case study for Washington Leadership Academy, you're going to see that they have very specific initiatives to really develop digital and technical literacy, because they want their students to be the creators of the future and the producers. So students will be able to create VR, they'll learn how to code, but they're going to learn how to participate in some of these future positions that are out there in the world to become our leaders. But you have to start with the community conversation, so we all just don't assume that there's this one-dimensional nature to the purpose of high school, and that we have to look at these broader set of competencies on the social emotional side, on the academic side, and everywhere else in between, so that we can create and address the whole child for the future.
That's great. So let me just give you a few pieces of advice about participating in the course. Probably the main one we have starting off is that our experience has been that that if you can take the course with a group of your colleagues, that's one of the most powerful ways to benefit from the learning experience. And some of you may be in some kind of circumstances in which it makes more sense for you to take the course by yourself, and we're totally happy to have you. We're happy to have people participate in any kind of context. But to the extent that communities can get together and have a few people together taking the course, we found that's the most powerful way of participating in the course. One of the tools that you'll find for doing that together is what we call a facilitator's guide. So the groups that take courses together, we call them learning circles. And we've created for these learning circles a facilitator's guide, which basically gives you some suggestions kind of every week going along of how you might be able to get together, structure meetings, some of those kinds of things. It's not meant to be a sort of literal script. I think our experience is that most people look at it, go, wow, this is a bunch of great ideas and some really specific things. And then in my context, I'm going to do something kind of different that's sort of particular to our setting. But I hope you find it useful to get you thinking about, we've had groups in the past that get together to do assignments together. We've had groups in the past where everybody does their assignments individually and then comes together to discuss them. We have some people who watch videos together and have conversations with them about it. So it's just a matter of sort of what the expectations are that you want to set with your community, but finding some way of, in a sort of steady cadence over the course of the time we have together, to be meeting regularly. I think you'll find one of the best ways of taking advantage of the resources in the course and the community here and at your own school. Anne asks, where can we find the facilitator's guide? And if you go along the top navigation bar in the course, you'll see it right up there, facilitator's guide, just to the left of want a free certificate, just to the right of the FAQ. Even if you are taking the class by yourself, the facilitator's guide actually just has a bunch of great sort of additional reflection questions and other things to be thinking about. So I see that there's a couple of more questions that are in the forums, but my window just popped away and now I got to find it again. And hold on, give me 1 second. It's a problem of trying to have too many windows on your screen open at the same time. Oh, here we go. Great. I saw that Brian had a question. What are the first steps to setting up a community forum to generate a graduate profile? That's a great question, and probably depends a little bit on where you are situated in your district. I mean, if you're the superintendent of the district, you could probably say something like, I'm going to have a town hall and we're going to get people together to start having a community forum. If you're a teacher working in the school, one of the things that we found really powerful in a number of contexts is sort of start with the coalition of the willing. Start with some of the people who you think would be most amenable to the idea, some of the people that you're closest to. Bring in students. Bring in parents, bring in community members, find sort of a smaller group of people to say, hey, this is something that I'm kind of excited about. In some ways, inviting people to take if it can be a handful of voices together who are trying to encourage these conversations, that's a little bit easier to snowball into a bigger process than if it's just one voice that's calling for these conversations. All of the materials in the course are available for you to use in different kinds of circumstances. They're all openly licensed as a Creative Commons license, either as a CC BY or a CC BY non-commercial. And so if you find that you think, wow, a great way to maybe start this conversation would be to take one video clip and ask that we watch it together in a faculty meeting or we watch it together in a department meeting. So even if there are people who aren't sort of making the commitment to participate fully in the course, feel free to take pieces of it. Take the exercise. Liz is just mentioned the fantasy graduate profile activity, which we're really excited about. We've sort of play tested with a bunch of groups now and had a lot of fun with. It's a way of getting people thinking about creating graduate profiles without starting with your own school, but instead starting with Wizard Academy and Spy Academy, and not trademark Starfleet Academy, but Spaceship Academy or something like that. So that's an activity that you might be able to do with a bunch of folks to get started. And Robin makes the great point, that all of these things have implications for folks who are younger and younger. In this course, we decided to start with high schools, and I think as there's some high school clarity, hopefully one of the things that you can find within your district and your community is you say, well, okay, if we have some collective vision of what we want people to look like at the end of this K-12 process, then that can give us some new ideas for thinking about what we want things to look like at K1, K2, K3, 6, 7, 8. In my hometown of Arlington, Massachusetts, one of the things that our community has talked about is just preparing people to be really good lifelong learners. And one of the concrete, that's where we want them to be when they're walking, across the stage in May at the end of their 12th year. But one of the ways that we've started working about that in my hometown is that we adopted a curriculum around social emotional learning called Tools of the Mind for kindergarten and first grade. And the teachers in those earliest grades make some real big investments in how do we learn together? How do we learn together as a community? How do we develop early on some executive function skills? So you're absolutely right, Robin, that even if we start framing some of these conversations around high school, because that's the end of our K-12 system, they have implications that go kind of all the way through to our very, very earliest learners.
Could I just add real quick that although you link to numbers of resources, including the knowledge modules on the XQ site, that the first one on Discover Students in the 21st Century has a whole range of think about questions and other things that people can use in community forums on exactly that question that came up. How do you get started?
Yeah, I mean, and I would just add, with some of the schools, they actually, they invite the parents in, and they actually workshopped it, and they'd put white blank paper up on the walls, just flip chart paper. And they would say, tell us what is important for you. What should students be able to know and do? And they would reframe the question different ways, and then let the parents and the community members just put a little sticky note up there, right? Or Houston, when they created the graduate profile, they had formal roundtables with really key stakeholders around the community. Another easy way to do it, if you have visitors come into your school, just stop and ask them, what do you want our students to be able to know and do? So there's lots of informal ways and formal ways to do it at all grade levels, like you suggest, Justin.
That's great. Heidi has a great question, which maybe will be our last one in case, unless anybody else wants to sneak one in. But just thinking about these things and how well are they accessible, especially some of these really, more amorphous challenges or more complex performances. In this course, we've set some boundaries around what we want to do, and we really focus on sort of defining some of these characteristics and competencies. We do think the clearer it is in people's heads what the end looks like, that is a powerful tool for being able to develop more tools for assessing how well we're doing. I mean, there's no question that we can't make progress on these things if we can't find different ways to measure some of these complex things like lifelong learning or problem solving within domains or mastering fundamental literacies and some of those kinds of things. But I think we spend a lot of time in our lab trying to figure out how do we get teachers to learn? How do we get teachers to do complex performance? And one thing that we come back to over and over again is the clearer we are in our own heads about what really high quality performance looks like. The clearer we are in our heads about what really high quality lifelong learning looks like, that's a real step forward into saying, okay, what are all the different ways? We probably can't measure it in the same way that we measure temperature with the precision of temperature or something like that. But we can get feedback from important stakeholders. We can gather data, some of which is qualitative, some of which is in stories, some of which is in numbers, to be able to answer some of these things. Well, this has been a great first half hour to get our course kicked off. Incredibly grateful to the 46 of you, 46 plus if there are people watching in a room, who joined us to get this started from all across the United States. Really grateful to have your questions. Make sure to keep bringing up all of those questions in the forums, the thoughts and reflections that you're having. The more you can make them visible, the more beneficial they'll be to you in clarifying your thoughts. But then you'll have a whole community of people to help answer and discuss these things. There's no right answer. There's no sort of silver bullet that we have here. But I think as a community together, if we can be talking with each other about what the outcomes of great learning looks like, about what who are the high school graduates that would really make our communities proud. If we can get more clarity together on the answers to those questions, then those conversations will really help us move forward. So thanks to Michelle and Monica for joining us. Thanks for Liz and Anne for helping to facilitate within the forums, and we're looking for in the chat window. Thanks to all of you who are watching this afterwards, and just incredibly excited to be learning with you in the weeks ahead.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.